everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I've heard a lot of people talking about this article and everything, and I wanted to kind of clarify what I discovered when I started looking into it. This is from the American Thinker, of course. As always, all the links will be down below so you can see them. Remember, it's in the description, so if you just click like a little arrow or something or a link, it will open up that description, and it will have all the links down there that you can click on. The idea behind this is that after 30 days of a shutdown, the government goes into a situation where they can have a great big RIF, which is a reduction in force. You see this down here, reduction in force, they call it riffing. So the thought is that Trump was purposely making sure this went past 30 days so he can now RIF all these people. Well, that's a good theory, but I don't think it holds water. Now, as I said, I'm going to put this down below, and the basic theory of this is that that's true and that they can, if these employees have been furloughed, which is what they call it during the shutdown, a furlough, for more than 30 calendar days, they must use RIF procedures. That's not necessarily true in the case of a government shutdown like this. It is true under normal circumstances for them if they have been kind of laid off, if there is a reduction in force that they're doing, so they're laying off people temporarily, and after 30 days of being laid off, then they can actually RIF them totally, and that means they terminate them. And here's another article on that. OMB is the Office of Management and Budget, issues guidance on reduction in force layoffs due to partial shutdown. Let's go to the horse's mouth, as it were. Federal News Network, kind of an important place to go, and let's see what it says. Furloughed feds won't be RIF'd if government shutdown extends past 30 days, OMB says. Now remember, the Office of Management and Budget is what's doing this. And so it says, agencies won't need to consider targeted layoffs, otherwise known as reductions in force or RIFs, if the current partial government shutdown continues for another few days. While federal statute typically instructs agencies to RIF targeted groups of employees who have been placed on furlough status for 30 days or more, the regulations don't apply to emergency furlough situations, the Office of Management and Budget confirmed Tuesday. Some astute Federal News Network readers had questioned whether their agencies could RIF furloughed employees if the current government shutdown, now at 25 days and counting, hits the 30-day mark. There are two kinds of furloughs. Administrative furloughs are planned events by an agency designed to absorb reductions necessitated by downsizing, reduced funding, lack of work, or any budget situation other than a lapse in appropriations, according to the Office of Personnel Management. Shutdown furloughs, also called emergency furloughs, occur during lapses in appropriations. OPM's 2015 guidance on shutdown furloughs also clarifies the matter. Reductions in force furlough regulations and SES competitive furlough requirements are not applicable to emergency shutdown furloughs because the ultimate duration of an emergency shutdown furlough is unknown at the outset and is dependent entirely on congressional action rather than agency action. Now I want to point out there, notice what it says, on what? Congressional action, right here, congressional action. So a shutdown furlough is dependent entirely on congressional action. So it doesn't matter if Trump says, I'm going to own this. He's really not. He can't. Because a shutdown furlough is dependent entirely on congressional action. It really is. Whether Chucky wants to admit it or not, sorry Chucky Schumer, shutdown furloughs are dependent entirely on congressional action. So sorry guys, you own it. Congress. And it's not the Senate that's owning it. It is the House. And who's in charge of the House right now? You got it. The Democrats. So Nancy, Sorry, but you're the person that it falls on, because a shutdown furlough is dependent entirely on congressional action. Anyway, I wanted to point that out to you. I know it's been going around, and even on Rush Limbaugh, there was some guy who was going to say it, and Rush shushed him up and wouldn't let him say it. I mean, seriously, he was kind of rude to the guy and wouldn't let him say anything, because this is what the guy was going to say. Oh, Trump's going to use it to RIF all these people. Now, I'm not saying that he won't RIF some people. I don't know. But I really don't think that's the purpose for it going this long. You know, it's a nice thought, but that's not the way we're going to be able to get our government cut down. That's just not the appropriate way of doing it. I think the whole point of having this last so long is we're watching what's happening with the Democrats. And you can start to see that there are some who are rebelling against Nancy Pelosi now. I think the last I heard there were 8 at least who were starting to say, look, we need a wall. So if they turn against her, this is going to be very important, because we're watching this power play go on between Trump and Pelosi. Pelosi is trying to put on this big front that she is tougher than Donald Trump. Now, I've known an awful lot of women who get into positions of power, and the problem with them doing that is they try to act like a man, and it comes across not so flattering for a woman to do. Okay? So she is not coming across well to most people. Now, I'm assuming that the people who are focused only on the mainstream media and they listen to everything they say and they believe everything the media is telling them, they probably see her differently. And those of us who really understand what's going on, we're not impressed by her. Her attempt to try to bully Trump into doing things her way is not really working out for her. She's not good at it. And it is making her look bad. And this whole thing, Trump did a masterful job with that letter. He showed them for what they were. First of all, he said, hey, you're not going. I'm the president and I'm in charge of the military. You're not using our military to do this. Which is good, because something that I didn't get a chance to share with you the other day was this. Judicial Watch back in 2011 had this information about Nancy Pelosi and her use of Air Force aircraft for her family. You ought to go through and read it. It's really quite eye-opening. She just has used the United States Air Force aircraft quite a bit. Let's just say it that way. And you can go through, and even for her husband, daughter, granddaughters, and son-in-law, and down here it says previous documents obtained by Judicial Watch show the former speaker's military travel cost the USAF $2.1 million over one 2-year period, and $101,000 of which was for in-flight expenses including food and alcohol. And you can see here for one Pelosi-led congressional delegation. By the way, when you see that Condel that they're talking about, Condel, that's what it is. It's congressional delegation. Condel. That's where they're getting it. But look at all this. Yeah, from Washington, D.C. through Tel Aviv, Israel to Baghdad, Iraq. And look at all these alcoholic beverages. Interesting. But I'll leave this down below so you can read it too. And that was something that I'd really planned on mentioning in yesterday's video, and I totally spaced it. So we had that. And there are documents that are connected with it. So interesting to go through. Now, I've been looking through at some of the names here. I haven't matched them up with whether they're Democrats or what. But if you go to this one, which was one of the documents that they had linked to in that article, you'll see the links. And this has several of the people that are going on this particular trip, which was to Detroit. And most of them are Democrats. There are some Republicans, but they were going to Detroit, so it only kind of makes sense that you'd have these Republicans from Michigan that would be going. But it was really interesting that you had a lot of people. There's my Joe Donnelly. He's no longer a senator. Yay! The majority of them, as you can see, are Democrats, though. I think it was 23 Democrats and 8 Republicans on this. oh, here's all the staff that they were taking. And they also included Debbie Stabenow from Michigan as well. So another Democrat on there. So I think it came out to 23 Democrats. And then I didn't count the staff on that, but just for the other. So yeah, Nancy was taking a lot of people, and most of them were Democrats. This is like huge expenses for going to see what? A car show. I think that's what it was, as a car show in Detroit. So yeah, that's kind of what she is known for. She likes the expense account. Okay? So I wanted to mention that. There is one other thing I wanted to mention to you about Nancy Pelosi that I forgot in yesterday's video, and that's here. This is from the Saudi embassy, and it was back in October 3rd, 2018. And guess who? We have Nancy sitting here, and she's with the HRH ambassador, Prince. Had an excellent discussion with Democratic leader about the historical Saudi-U.S. ties and regional and global developments. Now that in and of itself is not so unusual, but this happened to be the day before what? Khashoggi's disappearance. Coincidental? I don't know. Not saying it is, not saying it isn't, but it sounds a little odd with the timing. And speaking of that, you do know that POTUS in his letter said that they were going to Egypt, right? They were going to Egypt and Afghanistan. Brussels, Egypt, and Afghanistan. The thing is, though, in the Breitbart article that was talking about it, the CODEL, and remember I said that was congressional delegation, to Afghanistan included a required stop in Brussels for pilot rest. In Brussels, the delegation was scheduled to meet with top NATO commanders, U.S. military leaders, and key allies to affirm the United States' ironclad commitment to the NATO alliance. I think that recently Trump was kind of questioning whether we should still be in NATO. So I'm not so sure that they were working on his behalf there. Anyway, this weekend visit to Afghanistan did not include a stop in Egypt. The purpose of the trip was to express appreciation and thanks to our men and women in uniform for their service and dedication, and to obtain critical national security and intelligence briefings from those on the front lines. I find this very interesting about national security and intelligence briefings. Nancy all of a sudden wants to go to those, but when it had to do with her listening to Kirstjen Nielsen, our Secretary of DHS, she didn't want to listen to what she said. She rejected her facts. So why would she think these are going to be better briefings than the ones at home? I don't know. Anyway, the president traveled to Iraq during the Trump shutdown. Yes, he did. He was gone for what? 1 day? I mean, he was almost home before people even knew he was gone. And it was the day after Christmas. Nobody does anything the day after Christmas. Besides, Nancy Pelosi was in Hawaii, so it didn't matter anyway. As did a Republican CODEL led by Representative Zeldin. Okay, I just think that they shouldn't be going anywhere, to be honest. But that's my opinion, and after looking at the budget that Nancy Pelosi had on that one trip to Michigan, yeah, I think they need to start cutting back on those kinds of trips. So, anyway, why Egypt? That's really a question that's out there. Why Egypt? Well, a lot of people are saying that, Brussels is the capital for the EU, and there's a lot of the NATO type things, and possibly some cabal activities there. In Egypt, we have the Muslim Brotherhood, and then on to Afghanistan. So I don't know, were they making trips? Did POTUS happen to know they were going to Egypt and they had not put that out in the public news? Not sure. But he did mention it. So there's got to be a reason. Whenever he does something like this, there is a reason why he said it. I don't know why yet, and I'm sure it'll come up. I also wonder if when he said, obviously, if you would like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative. I wonder if this was kind of a jab toward that Judicial Watch article. And I realized that that information from Judicial Watch was from 2011. But it just recently came out again because of all this travel and everything starting to come back in the news. So I'm kind of wondering if those were connected. I don't know. So I'm tossing all this out there for you. I just want to give you some heads up on things, and especially about the 30-day thing. I don't know. Maybe that is what POTUS has in mind. That's what Rush Limbaugh thinks he does. I'm not so sure, because that article from the actual federal news doesn't appear to support that fact. If they were just reducing the number of people on the payroll and they laid off people temporarily to get the budget in order, and maybe they decided later on they didn't need those people, then yes. But a government shutdown is a little different, because yes, Congress is in control of that. Even if Trump says it falls on his shoulders, it doesn't fall on his shoulders. It falls squarely on the House of Representatives, because that's where it's supposed to start. We'll see. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. It will last as long as it needs to, but I think right now it's showing who these people really are. That they care nothing for the American people. They just care about enriching themselves, having their parties, going to all these different events, doing all this travel on our dime. And it needs to stop. I mean, you ought to see one of the receipts in here somewhere is like party type food. I mean, chips and salsa and all kinds of stuff. And it's like a big bill, too. And here's a lost receipt. I thought this was kind of interesting. $115 for hospitality room supplies. And that receipt just went missing. Here's the receipt I was talking about. So check it out. They got roasted mixed nuts, Keebler cheese and peanut butter, Keebler toasted peanut butter crackers, Club cheddar crackers, mixed nuts, peanuts, salsa, peanuts, lots of M&M peanuts, Colombian Starlight mints, M&M peanuts. Boy, they really like the M&Ms, don't they? The peanut M&Ms. Hershey's Kisses, and caramels, and Snickers, and Nilla wafers, and ginger snaps. Popcorn. Ooh, they're getting some popcorn. I mean, this is definitely just junk food that I guess they were supposed to have in their hospitality room supplies. So, yeah, $127 worth. So let's party. That's what we're doing when we're there, partying. So you can go through and see all these other receipts that they have. Nothing's horribly outrageous, obviously, but it's just a matter of like $24,000 for them to take this trip for, 3 or 4 days to Michigan, from Washington, D.C. to Michigan, Detroit, and then back. And it cost us that amount of money. And it's like, why? Why did you need to go to this? So you just kind of have to wonder if a lot of their trips and different things like that are really, really necessary. And maybe there's a better way of deciding when things are necessary and when they're not. I don't know. The travel, as far as I'm concerned, seems a little fishy. Why did they need to be going over there anyway? I don't know. What were they going to accomplish that they could not have accomplished over here? I can understand a few people maybe going, but this seemed like a lot of people. But that's what I've got for you tonight. You can look through all these receipts on your own and whatever you want to do. And before you go, I want to leave you with this.
Well, I figure by now everybody knows that Nancy told the president it might be a good idea to postpone the State of the Union address due to the government shutdown, 'cause it's a matter of security. Really? Imagine for a moment if John Boehner had told Obama not to bother showing up for the State of the Union. You think the media would be praising the Speaker of the House? Heck no. It would have been considered rude, crude, and racist. Look here, Cruella. Everybody knows the State of the Union is a huge platform for the president to speak directly to the American people, but she wants their information to come from the mainstream media rather than the president. So, Trump turns around and, due to the shutdown, postponed her overseas trip. Yep, all them parasites were on that chartered military bus, and they were headed to catch their flight, and then they were forced to stop and turn around. Swerve! Yeah, but now Trump is being called out for bullying. Again. No, What he did was to remind that pea-brain battle axe who the president really is. Y'all, she ain't mad about not going on her trip. She's mad 'cause she got schooled. Let me tell you something. Where she came from, they don't hide crazy folks. You know what they do? They dress it up, put lipstick on it, elect it, and send it to Washington, D.C. Check yourself.
But I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.